Hi guys, welcome to Innovated. It is Zonk, and we've been gone for a minute, and this is the video where I'm gonna explain why. So, the first thing you guys are probably gonna notice is we have a completely different background. Now that's because we moved from our dads to our grandparents, which has been a good thing. It's really helped us with a lot of stuff. Just because there's really, not that there was any like abuse or anything happening at dad's, it just, there's other people who are struggling with mental illness there, so basically like them getting triggered would be triggering for us, and then us being triggered would be triggering for them, and then we're constantly just sitting there feeding into each other triggers, and it's just not a good situation for either party involved. So it is better for us to be with our grandparents. Secondly, we have been struggling with health issues a lot, and I'm not sure if we've talked about it on the channel, but we officially got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. So that is going to kind of help you understand why us starting school and then having 2 jobs and then also on top of that having fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, we were not able to do anything extra. So it was nearly impossible to film and edit and upload videos. We have recently quit our second job, so we are back just down to 1, which debatably we shouldn't be trying to have a job and go to school because it means we have no time and we need more rest time, but that's not what's happening because we do still want to make money. We do still want to get on our own, be independent at some point. So then next, we had a lot of discoveries in the system, like major. So I'm kind of just going to give you a timeline here. So first of all, Alex knew there was 20-ish altars. And then, okay, so all the times that we've discovered new altars, I've known about it. And I didn't tell people. I'm not a gatekeeper at all. I just used to be a persecutor, and one of my roles when I was a persecutor was to find, like, who all the altars are and what like weaknesses were or whatever, because basically there's like a giant group of persecutors and they wanted to recruit more altars to be persecutors, if that makes sense. So when I was a persecutor, I went and I like explored the entire inner world and found out about a lot of different altars and shit like that. So basically Alex knew about 20 altars, or 24 or something like that, and then basically Lizzie became the only gatekeeper, and when that happened, she kind of had a mini breakdown. It wasn't a full-fledged like freak out, she couldn't do anything, but she had a little bit of a mini breakdown. She was really overwhelmed because she got all the trauma memories like that. So basically Lizzie then decided that knowing everything, she wanted to tell everyone about as much as she knew. So I told her I didn't think it was a good idea, but she did anyways. So she knew about the forest, which was a separate part of our inner world that had probably about 40 more altars in it. So then Alex knew about around 60 altars. And I'm going in terms of from what Alex knew about because you guys were being told everything Alex knew. And then after that all happened, basically Alex was like, there's no more altars, right? And then I lied and I said, right. And basically I don't really feel bad about not telling Alex, but I understand why it's necessary for him to know now, if that makes sense. So I will stand by why I didn't tell him initially, because I thought he would have a meltdown, and he is now currently having a meltdown, which may or may not be related to all the altars. We really don't know. But basically, then after that, we had a lot of issues with health, as I said. We've had bronchitis for about 2 months, I think. We had bronchitis and we've had a cough ever since for the past 2 months, or whatever. So basically, we were having a coughing fit that lasted about 15 minutes. And whenever our body is super distressed health-wise, we start rapid switching. I don't know why. It's some sort of coping mechanism, like our body is trying to find someone who can handle it, I guess, or something. So basically, we start rapid switching, and Raylin, an alter who Alex did not know about, who lives in, I want to say the city. She either lives on the beach or in the city. I don't know. They're kind of in a similar area. So basically, Raylin switches out and is like, what is happening? I don't know what's going on, and starts freaking out. Then switches back out, sees me. Raylin and I are pretty close because I have like an entire friend group in the beach city and Atlantis, because we do also have Atlantis in our inner world. I'm actually dating a guy who lives in Atlantis because they're able to become human. It's complicated. But basically, Raylin sees me and she goes, Zonk, what's happening? Like, why is the body all different? And she like runs into my arms and starts crying. So then clearly I'm like holding her and comforting her, because that's kind of what you do when one of your friends starts crying, right? But then I forget for a moment that Alex does not know that Raylin exists. So he looks at me and goes, Zonk, how many more altars are there? And I responded with, what are you talking about? Because once again, I didn't think it was a good idea for him to know. And I stand by the idea that I don't think it's a good idea for Alex to know about everything, but whatever. So basically, he then is like, you clearly know who that is. And I say, what makes you say that? Because once again, I'm trying to get him to leave me alone, but it didn't work. Basically, I ended up telling him, okay, I know for sure about this many more altars, but there is a completely new area in the inner world that I found, and I haven't gone through it yet. So basically, by the time I tell Alex about all the altars, I for sure know our altars can front and everything. Raylin, having been dormant, now coming out of dormancy, we're up to 84, I think. So basically, then after that happened, I took Atlas, who's my boyfriend who I previously mentioned, who has also been a huge part in the inner world, or not in the inner world, in the system for a really long time. And I am genuinely surprised that people didn't know he existed. Like, I have no clue how that happened. I don't know. He just was really good at pretending to be Alex, but then, like, every time he was fronting, apparently no one would notice that it wasn't someone they recognized fronting. I don't even know. But basically, he then, he and I went into this new area I discovered, which was the canyons. And now, I'm not going to go into specifics about trauma, but our trauma was, like, we had childhood trauma, clearly, that's why we, like, split first and everything. But basically, our trauma was pretty steady in the same, like, area from ages, like, 3 to, I want to say about 11 or 12, because there was a pretty major thing that happened when we were around 11 or 12, and then after that happened, the trauma just got way worse. So basically, all of the splits from 12 to 14, or maybe 15, I would say, 12 to 15, are in the canyons. So there was about 60 more altars that I discovered in the canyons. So for those of you who know what that means, we have 132 altars that I'm 100% sure of, and that makes us polyfragmented because we do also have 4 subsystems. Alex is also a subsystem. So that's everything we're 100% sure of. Now after that, there is this one altar, his name is Fever. I'm not going to go into too many details about him because I don't want to trigger anyone with some of the stuff he's said and done, or some of the interactions I've had with him. But he is Okay, so he split off when the body was around 9, I think. And no, he split off. He's our first known sexual protector. That was the first time we had any sort of sexual trauma. Now, basically, I'm not going to go into any detail because, once again, we're not going to, like, disclose our trauma because that's just not going to happen. So, basically, he split off, and his initial role was sexual protector, but then on top of that, he became the architect of the system, I guess, because basically talking to Fever, in order to get any information out of him, you have to talk for about 10 times as long as you would have to talk to anyone else. So basically, I was talking to him for about 3 hours, and, well, Atlas and I were both talking to him for about 3 hours, and we got this information out of him. Basically, he was in the inner world more than any of the other alters that existed at the time. So he started creating the inner world because he was bored. That is literally what he told me, was that he was bored, so he decided to create a space for everyone to live, right? So there is another part of our inner world, which is the mountains. Now, this is where Fever lives, I think. I really don't know, because Fever is just everywhere all the time. Like, he's not in multiple places at once, but, like, I've run into him in Atlantis, and he should not have the ability to go down in Atlantis, because there's, like, a huge process you have to do to go through stuff. It's complicated. He also, I've run into him on the beach, in the city, in the forest, in the main room. I've run into him all over the place. I don't know if he really has a set place he stays. He kind of just wanders, I think. But so basically, there's the mountains, and then there's also another section that's attached to the mountains, which is, like, there's literally, like, a castle in the clouds. So basically, Atlantis and this castle in the clouds exist from a story that Riza, or Clarissa, who is now going by Riza because they are non-binary, used to tell our younger sister about, like, humans that could become mermaids and fairies and things, and they had, like, multiple different stories of multiple different characters that kind of all interwove. So apparently our inner world has both Atlantis and this castle in the clouds from that. Now, I'm not sure the name of the castle in the clouds, because I didn't really pay attention when we went to that part. I don't know. But so basically, we know for sure there's 132 altars, and that's not counting dormant altars. I based my criteria on whether someone was an altar or not when I was going through all this situation, like tallying and everything, which Lizzie should have been doing, but Lizzie has her hands full. We need another gatekeeper. She is trying to do it alone right now, and it's a lot. And Tyr cannot, because when he was gatekeeper and had trauma memories, he started having issues with hallucinations, and it's just not a good idea for Tyr to be in that role. It's clearly something he can't handle. But we do need a second gatekeeper, so we're trying to get Fever to do that, but he, for some reason, doesn't want to. So, basically, when I was tallying these altars, I would consider them to be an active altar if they had fronted within the last year, and, yeah, that was basically what I did. I was like, what's your name? How old are you? How long have you been here? Why did you split off? Don't give me the specific trauma, because I don't need any more trauma, but, like, basically, why did you split off? Like, what was the nature of the trauma? And then, when was the last time you fronted? Those were the questions I asked. And so that's counting active altars. So that is the whole situation with the altars. There's probably about 40 other altars. That's just my ballpark guess. I'm not 100% sure. In the mountains. But it is also possible that some of them are NPCs, because I did not ask any of them if they were altars or fronted or anything, and that's just the one area in the mountains I was at, so I'm really not sure, but we do have a lot of NPCs in the beach city in Atlantis, so it is very possible that a lot of the altars in the mountains are NPCs. I would not be surprised at all. But basically, that's that situation with the altars. So then we realized that Lizzie told us that she had had about 50 hours every week that were completely unaccounted for. Like, she had no clue who was fronting because she didn't have record of the altar. So basically, now we've gone down to about 3 hours a week that are completely unaccounted for. That still feels like a lot. Like, I feel like you shouldn't really have more than, like, maybe an hour a week that's unaccounted for. And for us, we don't really have times where we're, like, sitting staring at the wall and no one's fronting. I think the last time that has happened unintentionally was when we were still in the situation where we were being traumatized. But that's not happening anymore. So the last time that happened, we were fully aware of why it was happening because we had a giant system meeting with literally everyone, and we just turned the TV on and we're just blankly staring at the screen while everyone was in the inner world having a conversation. But basically, after all the whole altar situation, we realized, or Alex realized, that he could not just be the only host because it was way too much for him. So before he realized he couldn't be host alone, he took a complete host break. He didn't stop fronting, but he took a host break. And he had, like, for about a week, maybe 2 weeks, we didn't have a host at all. It was literally just, like, random people were waking up in the body, we were struggling with communication, people were leaving notes in, like, 6 different places, so we weren't always finding them. It was really confusing, so we can't function without a host. But then basically Alex was like, okay, our pain is so bad, our fatigue is so bad, there's so many altars to keep track of, I cannot be the only host. So we were like, okay, well then we'll have, like, co-hosts, and then secondary co-hosts, and then tertiary co-hosts, right? So basically, the hierarchy of it didn't work, and Alex still was just losing it. And basically, he has had an issue with the discovery of all of these altars and being polyfragmented, and then we discovered that he's a subsystem. So for those of you who don't know what a subsystem means, a subsystem is an altar who in the inner world has multiple altars. So it's basically like an altar with the ID. So Alex's subsystem is OSDD-1B, which makes a lot of sense. Atlas and I have thought that Alex was a subsystem for probably about 6 months. Because even before Atlas had, like, officially met and interacted with people, we were, like, constantly talking about things all the time about what was going on in the inner world and stuff because, like, we're dating, so I guess that happens. So basically he, and I had thought that Alex was a subsystem, and after Alex met Atlas and everything, and then we all started talking, everyone kind of just implicitly trusts Atlas. He is a caretaker, so that might be part of the reason. But basically, Alex and Atlas got really close really fast. This was probably about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago that they met. And then after about 2 weeks, they got super close. So Atlas told him, like, hey, Alex, I think you might be a subsystem. Because apparently when I, like, talk to people, I am very, I don't know, what's the word? I said, what's the word? And Atlas responds, mean. I mean, I guess he's not wrong. I'm very direct. That was the word I was looking for. But, so, Atlas was probably a better person to tell Alex that. Alex didn't want to hear it, was saying, no, that's not true, whatever. Literally the next day, we're at school, and Alex is fronting, and he's like, God, can someone else please handle that? And we're all like, handle what? And then he's like, I hear a really, like, confused, distressed altar. Because this has been happening a lot lately. I think it's part of the time of year. We have had altars coming out and being like, where am I? What's happening? Why is everything different? I don't know where I am. And so that's been fun. But, so apparently this was happening in Alex's inner world, in his subsystem. And he goes, can someone else please handle that? And then Atlas was like, Alex, what are you talking about? And he's like, there's an altar that's, like, talking about da-da-da-da-da-da. And then Atlas goes, Alex, can you just stop fronting for a second? And then I took over, and then this all got filled in by Atlas later because, what were we doing? It was something involving drama, and I like had to be 100% focused on what we were doing because we're directing a show right now. So basically, I'm sitting there like directing the show while all this is happening. But so Atlas said to Alex, like, look around, there's nothing happening in here. And Alex was like, no, I'm still hearing it, I'm still here. Oh my god. And then he like apparently turned around, went in his inner world to talk with this alter, this alter is Ryan, and Ryan, I had actually met Ryan before Alex even split off, because Alex split off after Ryan. Ren, who's another alter in their subsystem, fronted, and then he explained like, hey, yeah, it's me, Alex, Ryan, and Lou. And so we were like, okay, so Alex is a subsystem. We were right, which, like, it's not a good thing that he's a subsystem, but it's a good thing that we noticed, I guess. So basically, that all happens. Alex gets super overwhelmed because, 1, we're polyfragmented, 2, he's a subsystem, and 3, all of a sudden, all these emotions about, basically, the situation when we moved here, which was safer for us and was definitely a good thing, we did have to leave our 2 younger siblings who we basically raised. We were very parentified in the household we were in. So basically we had to leave, and Alex had been in denial of the situation. So all of a sudden all the emotions of denial he had just went away, and he all of a sudden was like freaking out and feeling guilty and having all these emotions that he hadn't had. I know other alters have gone through this, and we've gotten to a point where we're like, no, we just need to get healthy so that we can help them, because we can't help them if we're as chaotic internally as we are right now. But basically, Alex had not gotten to the point where he had like grieved, I guess. So basically, those emotions are resurfacing. He's a subsystem, we're polyfragmented, and he loses it. Because then also the health issues on top of it. So basically, he was like, I can't be the only host. And we were like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Let's try to do this hierarchy thing where it's like 2 co-hosts, 2 secondary hosts, and then 2 tertiary hosts who were Violetta and Shariza, but then Violetta and Shariza integrated and are now Celeste, and Celeste is like super healthy, way healthier than either of them. It was a really good integration for our system. It's really been beneficial. But basically, we tried that for a little bit. That still didn't work. And then we decided, okay, let's just have all the hosts kind of at one level. And so we did that. And while that was happening, Alex just slowly was getting worse and worse and worse. He, like, his eating disorder resurfaced and got really bad. He started, like, trying to take care of a bunch of, like, people that we had met, like, in DID group chats on Instagram, who were between the ages of 11 and 14, which is in the same age range of our younger siblings at the right now. And so basically, he just, like, completely started spiraling. So we noticed that this was happening after about the second day of it being really, really bad eating-wise. And when he stopped fronting, we had, who was it? I think we had Corinne, who is one of Atlas and I's friends from the city. We had her front, and we were talking to Alex, like we being me, Celeste, Atlas, and Edge, the other hosts. We were like, hey Alex, you have a problem, man. Like, you're struggling with your eating, and you're like trying to take care of people, and you're not really taking care of yourself. What's going on? And he goes, I'm fine, there's no problem. And we're sitting there talking to him, and we probably spent like an hour trying to talk to him and get him to open up, and he kept saying, what are you guys talking about? There's no issue, I always do this, I'm not having any problems, and that was basically the entire conversation. So Edge proposed that Alex take a short break from fronting, and we were like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. because during this conversation we'd been having this argument with Alex, and eventually it got to the point where Ryan pushed him out of front in the inner world, so then Ryan was fronting in their subsystem, and he's like, I didn't want to hear that anymore. I'm done. And so Edge says, I think Alex needs to take a break, and all 5 of us were like, yes, Alex needs to take a break. So basically, then we were thinking, like, literally just until our next therapy appointment, Alex is going to take a break. Because then we wanted Alex to talk to our therapist, because she's great. She's a DID specialist, like, knows our system really well and all this stuff, right? So Edge says, hey, I want you to talk to Alex. And then Alex, pretending to be Ren of his subsystem, is like, we can't find Alex. So basically it takes us about 3 hours to realize that Alex was just pretending to be one of his alters, and he has basically been hiding and refusing to talk to anyone who can help him. So we're just gonna let him kind of figure things out at this point, because there's not much else we can do. But we are definitely gonna keep up with this channel, and we are definitely gonna keep posting things on Instagram, and so we felt like you guys kind of deserved like a little bit of an explanation of what's going on, because we did just kind of go radio silent on the channel out of nowhere, but despite the fact that Alex isn't fronting at the moment, we did still want to share with you guys like our journey, everything that's been happening, and continue to educate people and kind of help the community as much as we can without going too far, which Alex did recently, but we got out of the whole situation where we were like, basically what he had done is he had made us become like an on-call therapist for like 4 kids. So I noped the fuck out of that situation. And we have it all solved now, like externally as a system. Alex still has issues he needs to work through though. So, that's the talk. Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching. I know this video was really long, but thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.